You are amazing.
All right, so full disclosure, I was going to open the show making fun of Aunt May when the Goblin told her to finish the prayer. But I felt really bad, and I couldn't stop laughing. So let's just start the show. All right, that was Macy Gray, who was in this movie that I completely forgot about. It was a little awkward seeing her in there, especially coming from Training Day and seeming like she had just met up with Snoop Dogg. But anyway, let's start. And we have a star-studded cast. You wouldn't believe the people that we have in here. And I'm going to bring in Miss Mary Jane Watson herself right here, E-Bookie. How are you doing, Miss?
You are so annoying. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I bring you in with love, and here you are with hate at me already.
What do you mean? What are you trying to get at? What are you trying to say?
Well, you're the woman of the show, so you're MJ.
Okay, sure.
Who do you want to be? You want to be the assistant to J. Jonah Jameson? Who do you want to be?
I don't want to be classified by my gender.
All right, they. Here we have they, and they are playing Jay Watson. I don't know. There you go. Now, coming up next, I forgot who I cast him as in this movie, but I might give him the Green Goblin, but he calls himself the executive consultant. Sir, how are you doing?
I mean, I'm doing fine. So if I want to be considered a goblin, I mean,
no, not the Goblin, but you're the antagonist of the film.
Also, I think I'm
you're
green.
Osborn. Who do you want to be? You want to be Spider-Man?
No, definitely not Spider-Man.
In high school, they would have called you Flash Thompson because that's how you carried yourself. But you're a changed man.
Flash Thompson was a punk in this movie. I'm not.
No, but I mean in the comic book sense, you know.
Yeah, well, better than the new revamp version.
Yeah. Now, I ironically, the person who was on Roosevelt Island couldn't make it tonight. He's doing something, I don't know, it's something to do with plants, I believe. But he may be joining us, ladies and gentlemen, for a special guest appearance. But this is Spider-Man 2002. What makes the Spider-Man different? Well, he's actually intelligent. Also, Tony Stark does not make it a spoiler alert. Tony Stark is not in this movie. This is 2002, pre-MCU. All right. Anyway, here's a synopsis. Sam Raimi's the first of his trilogy, or arguably his duo of films, Spider-Man 2002. Underdog Peter Parker is gifted with powers that change his life forever. But with these new abilities comes sacrifice and great responsibility. Now, this is our Tuesday movie. We're going to be going through the series. We're going to hit Andrew Garfield. We're going to hit, I think we should time it right so that Into the Spider-Verse is what we end, not Into the Spider-Verse. That's the animated movie. Are we doing that?
No Way Home. No Way Home.
Are we doing Into the Spider-Verse?
You know what? I was thinking about that last week, but I already promised I think Midsommar or something that we end up watching. But I thought about it. It's like, dang, I should have did Spider-Man. I'm not blaming you. I didn't blame you. You did not hear me say that it was because of
He blamed the movie that you picked.
I said I thought about that, but I already promised that. So I was saying that I should.
Because you picked Midsommar, he couldn't do the movie that made sense.
Shift blame when
I'm just saying.
I don't recall me shifting blame. I said I should have thought
Flash
of that.
And MJ.
Right. I should have thought about that, but because I already promised it out.
Assistant, and we are hiring. It's not paid.
We're hiring without any pay.
We're hiring, no pay.
We can offer Obamacare.
Yeah, and that's it.
And that's it.
I came off for that.
No, I mean that Obama's offering that, or Biden is Biden.
Gas points.
Yeah, ACA. All right, but this is the Tuesday pick, so we're going through all the movies and what is it? It's Not Far From Home. What is it? What is the Doctor Strange team up with Spider-Man? It's the live action version of Into the Spider-Verse. That's the one we're ending on. Forgive me, I forget the name of that Spider-Man movie. Mr. Roosevelt Island himself. Mr. President, how are you doing, sir? Now, if you missed the last episode, this is the King of Spring. Was it the King of May? The King of May has joined us. How are you doing?
That's a good one. That is sorry for the tardiness. I had a little plumbing issue in the house. Had to take care of. But
so did I. I ordered Chinese food. Let me just say it was delicious, but when it came out,
no, man.
Oh,
no.
You're talking about something else? Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't that kind of plumbing issue. It was an actual have to remove a pipe type of thing. But yeah. Where's everybody? Where's Chris?
Chris is backstage. He's talking to Bonesaw.
Wait a minute, but hold up. Why are you not here? This is his.
He was just on. He's talking to Bonesaw. But anyway, this is the Tuesday. This is the Tuesday episode.
To the macho.
So we're gonna do all the Spider-Man movies. So who wants to go first? Give me your best of, worst of this movie. I know Chris has a lot to say. This is arguably one of his most favorite franchise films.
Well, clearly.
I'll go first. I can get it over with.
So you loved it?
No, clearly.
I think it was very much so a movie of its time. It was super freaking campy.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that it felt very much so straight from the comic book, although the webbing thing left a lot to be desired. But whatever. Aside from that, I thought it was super campy, great for families. It was cool because he was still in high school. So, and honestly, Tobey Maguire really perfectly embodied. You know how people just perfectly embody the what is the
character
but the non-hero persona of a hero, like say
their alter ego and everything like that.
Yes,
Gotcha.
he played the Peter Parker role perfectly. Now the CGI guy that played Spider-Man, he did great too, but I think Peter Parker really was the heart of this story and his whole thing. I wasn't truly into the whole romance part, but I really liked seeing Peter come into his own, and Peter kind of tried to live up to be the man that his Uncle Ben raised him to be. I really liked that, and this movie had a lot of heart. That being said, there were a lot of Disney movie straight to Friday night scenes in this movie, Disney Friday night movie thing. Mm-hmm. It is kind of corny in some areas and kind of wait, shouldn't y'all be more aghast at some of the things Peter was doing when he first discovered he had some powers? And in that way, I mean, sure, because of it was a movie of its time, it was super camp, and that's kind of the whole thing, making fun of the fact that this is a movie, and I think that that's cool. It just was, it gets dated when you look back on it, especially now and today when we're used to a more serious kind of what's the word I'm looking for? More somber version of these superhero stories. Best of, I'll say, obviously, Uncle Ben. He was perfect. He had 2 freaking seconds in this movie, and it was the most influential moments of Peter Parker / Spider-Man's life. It's a line that I reference a lot in my daily life because people need to hear it, and it needs to reverberate through them, especially when it comes to anti-racism, especially when it comes to being an ally. But whatever. With great power comes great responsibility. That is an amazing line, super impactful, and really birthed Spider-Man and that whole side persona. Now, I really liked how this movie demonstrated. This is exactly what happened in the comic book, right? How Ben passed away. I really like how they did that. And this movie was very poetic in that way as well. A lot like the original story in the comic book. I'll say worst of anything James Franco said. He was absolutely awful. Thank God he's such a handsome guy. He always has been. And he does play the kind of poor little rich kid persona pretty well. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Maybe it's because they maybe it's because the actor that played his father really just stole the show. He was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the actor's name.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was amazing. I remember even the first time I saw this, I was like, "Damn, is this the Willem Dafoe man? Like, this is really like this is a vehicle for him. Obviously, I mean, he was already lending his A-list credibility and long career to this film, but yeah, he really stole the show in this, and it was pretty good. But yeah, I guess I don't know about recasted. Yeah, Tobey Maguire to me, best Peter Parker. I think I'll have more to say later on in this series about who's the best Spider-Man.
Okay. I might agree with you.
Yeah.
I might agree with you.
Yeah. Tobey really embodies kind of that not so confident, like growing pains type of more passive persona, and I think he's captivated audiences back then with it. That's why we loved him so much with this series, even though it did not. To me, it doesn't stand the test of time. But that first one still is a really great one, and it really was gold bar standard from that point forward for the Spider-Man legacy. Yeah, that's all I got, guys. I don't really have it recasted. Willem Dafoe, hey. I mean, I'll recast his CGI version. His CGI, I'd recast that for sure.
There you go.
Yeah, he was looking.
I think. No, all joking aside, I think that you made very valid points to what you said. I'm going to piggyback off of something in a second, but I open up the floor if anybody else wants to go next. If not, I'll jump in here.
All right, I'll go. Well, this movie brought back a lot of memories. Because there was a few times that this movie around that time kind of got redone, and there's certain parts that people don't necessarily remember. Now, for example, when this movie was first being promoted, it was being promoted with a picture of a helicopter in between the Twin Towers. So 9/11 happened like around the tail end of the production of this movie, and then the movie came out the following year. So a lot of it, especially like Spider-Man jumping off of the building with the big American flag in the end, that was a really, really big thing, because the city was just draped in American flags. You know, the leftovers of that is the all the American flags that are on the subways. Like a lot of them are literally from that time, and they've been there since that time. On some of the subways, at least. I mean, one thing that was nice to see was the neighborhoods, because a lot of those neighborhoods I'm familiar with. I miss seeing the Red 7 train that I saw throughout the movie. The areas that they were in, Sunnyside and Forest Hills and Woodside, like I could just tell by looking at the streets. So a lot of that was cool, and you know, because I was watching this movie, and I taught a class there today. I decided to get on. The Roosevelt Island tram, which is really cool. Honestly, it's one of the best things to do in the city, and but at the same time, it's really, really scary, because you're literally moving back and forth just like in the movie. And it was great because why am I take it off? Okay, because you're literally moving back and forth just like in the movie. And I was watching some of the movie while I was on the damn tram, so that was cool. It was a good time. I anybody that comes to New York, I implore that you do that, because it's one of the best views. Really nice sunset, and it's scary as hell. You know, not as scary as the cyclone, but it's scary as hell to do that. And all it costs is just a Metro card swipe. So, but back to the movie. With all of that being said, I at the time was thoroughly entertained because, it was a big hype up. It was a big hype up for just to have Spider-Man out. Clearly, if this movie was made around this time, there wouldn't have been mentions of Superman. There wouldn't have been mentions of any other DC characters. Therefore, it's something that was pretty much in its infancy at the time. Stan Lee running around, but you know what? The other thing that I really liked was
what was the first thing that you liked about this movie?
Oh yeah, thanks. So I should have just said it that way, but the first thing that I liked about this movie was just that at the time, more than anything, was just that we were just hyped for it and ready for a live action version of Spider-Man. Secondly, was just the way that Norman Osborn was portrayed. More than anything, that mirror scene. Where you just see the two faces. It's kind of like Two-Face, like the way, I mean, they must have cut that several times, but the way that he just changed his facial expressions, I felt like that was brilliant. I thought that it was just key to the character. In my opinion, I think the Green Goblin is literally one of the best villains in all of Spider-Man, like in the Spider-Man megaverse, if you want to have you will. But yeah, there's a lot to like about this movie. But like you guys said before, it certainly is dated. It gives you, more than anything, it gives you a big feeling of post 9/11. I guess for me specifically, because I was here and I saw it, I lived through it and all that. But yeah, it's clearly I like it.
Well, I don't know if there's any more to say about the movie because the two of you covered it, but
well, you know what, I'm sorry to say I had a work emergency. I didn't hear E Boogie's perspective of it, and I'll be very interested to hear. I didn't hear anything that was going on with this movie from E Boogie. I didn't hear anything that was going on from Vic. I mean, Vic turned into a damn memorandum for New York. I mean, like only a New Yorker would be so freaking arrogant to take one of the greatest. Why is it, E Boogie? Why is it that even though I gave up my segment, right? I'm still being interrupted. Can I get my thought out? Is that okay with you, Miss? I didn't get the memo.
This show is live.
To dress as a blue shirt.
Some of these conversations have been taking place for years.
Like, hold on. I'm trying to get my point out. I'm trying to figure out how we're over here talking about, in my opinion, one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. Spider-Man 1. One of the greatest. I saw this movie on my birthday because it was that special, that in Star Wars Attack of the Clones. And I loved every minute about this movie. I'm about to tell you, but while I'm trying to listen, I'm listening to Vic. Vic give a history lesson of the city of New York City instead of telling me about the movie. You New Yorkers are so freaking arrogant to think that your city is the most important city and the only known city in the United States, even though you only have 8 million people and there's 275 million other people living in the United States. God, you New Yorkers, I don't understand it. What was it about the movie? Tell me the best and worst of the movie. Tell me why. Don't tell me Green Goblin's one of the. Everybody knows Green Goblin's one of the best villains of all Spider-Man. We know this, man. We know it.
You know, it's funny how uppity people can be when they wish they lived in the city.
When
they wish they live in the city that was as popping as New York. And here's the funny thing:
where was the city popping? Where was the city popping? Was it popping like popcorn?
You're gonna be here this weekend to celebrate 3 years. All right. How about you do that in your own?
Y'all arrogant asses don't know how to hop on a freaking plane. Y'all don't know how to hop on a plane and come to a state that's not freezing. That's why. Okay.
Because so I'm gonna hop on the Confederacy, my man.
Everybody, more people live here than they live in New York. What are you talking about?
For those of you who are listening and confused, you're not alone. We're talking about Spider-Man 2002. Sam Raimi's first film in his duo of films, arguably, since the third one has so much of Abbey.
The only person I have heard from is E Boogie. E Boogie, tell me, did you like this movie? Did you give it a thumbs up?
Hold on, E. Press the scrub back button so we can restart the show because Chris had an emergency.
I didn't see where she gave a thumbs up or thumbs down. Now that is
she said she had more to say. She said she had more to say, but she's opening up the floor.
If she gave a thumbs up or thumbs down, then I will sit here and I will apologize right now. But I doubt she did. Did you?
Because she has more to say, but she wanted to open up the floor.
Excuse me, James. So
that's what she said.
From what I could tell, is very well versed in being able to speak for herself.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
But do you listen though?
Thank you.
Did you listen to wear a blue shirt in this episode? No. Can you tell me?
We're on the Enterprise, ladies and gentlemen.
We discussed that in the pre-production because that didn't happen.
James and I had a nice conversation pre-production while you were in the background, putting on your Mary Jane wig. Could you tell me, are you giving this movie a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
I'm giving you a thumbs down. In this movie, I guess I'll give it maybe a thumb, maybe 2 fingers to make a heart, like a Korean heart.
Thank you. Vic, are you giving this movie a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Please don't go all around Manhattan like E Boogie did. Okay, there we go. Now, this movie gets a thumbs up from
all around Manhattan and get some party anyway.
I give this movie a fist.
Keep your fetishes to yourself. I'm trying to tell you, right? This movie was so well done. It is one of, if not one of the most complete comic book movies I have ever seen. Comic book accurate. I mean, somebody complained because he doesn't make web flu. Who cares? It was great. I love this movie. Some people might say it's dated. I don't see why. The special effects were good. When he was swinging through the streets the first time, right now E's on her James kick because I could tell what she's typing. When he was swinging through the city for the first time, looking for that criminal, it was beautiful. It was fantastic. It was super well done. Same thing with the very last shot and the last scenes when he was zipping through the streets of New York. It was so beautiful. I remember when the mean streets of New York was so popping back in 2002 and 3. Bullshit. However, the scenes of this movie, okay, that was E and James. The scenes of the movie were great. The fight scene between him and the Green Goblin. Green Goblin's lines, I wish we were still doing quotables. He had so many good lines in this movie that
we have time.
Yes, that I was using when I kick people's asses in video games. But this movie was superb. Very well acted, very well casted. I don't have a recasted, ladies and gentlemen. That's a spoiler. I don't have a recasted. This movie was just super perfect. It is one of, I'll say it again, greatest superhero movies of all time, tied possibly with Spider-Man 2, X-Men Days of Future Past, and Dark Knight. It's just that damn good. James, we're going to you, and I'm going to read the crap that you and E Boogie are typing in the private chat. I might read it out loud. I don't know.
I'm very curious before I go. Why do you stay tied with Spider-Man 2? Just as far as quality or story-wise, like it's just one.
It's certain times you'll hear me when we're comparing something. I'll say it depends on the day of the week. It might change from this thing to this thing. So today, right now, I'll say Spider-Man because I just watched it. Next week, I might say Spider-Man 2. It's really hard for me to pick between both of them because I just think both of them were very well done. Green Goblin was so impactful. To piggyback off what Vic was saying, Green Goblin was so impactful that he pretty much was the center story or centerpiece of the movie for all of the entire trilogy. More so than Dr. Octopus, even though everybody's most excited to see Dr. Octopus in this new Spider-Man movie comes out next month. And I understand why. It was so very well done. But even Willem Dafoe, even when I see him in any movie now, he was an Aquaman, for instance, I still look at him as the Green Goblin. He played that role to a T. Tobey Maguire is still arguably the best Spider-Man to me. It's just how I perceived it. Spider-Man 1 and 2 was perfect. If they actually did a good Spider-Man 3, it would have been a perfect trilogy. And I think Spider-Man 3 is a little underrated. It wasn't good, but it was a little underrated. Because
you would have preferred a 2 or a 3?
I prefer No Sandman. I would prefer Venom in the 4th one. If that makes sense. But we'll talk more about that in 2 weeks. We'll talk more about that in 2 weeks. E-Boogie, you look like you wanted to say something real quick before Jameson gets his go.
I forgot.
If only that could work with a lot of conversations with you.
Hey, before I begin, I forgot we have a new sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, before I give my thoughts on this movie, I just wanted to say we have a new sponsor, and we are so grateful to Rolex. Rolex has been making great timepieces, allowing us to tell time and to be punctual. And this show is sponsored. UPRE is sponsored by Rolex, a fine timepiece in its own right. Thank you so much for sponsoring UPRE. Now, as far as my best of worst of, here we go. Can I just do the worst of first because I just have a few. Shout out. This should be a segment. Shout out to the woman who left her infant at home because she had to do something that required her to bring nothing back in her hands whatsoever. It wasn't like there was no food or she needed to grab formula because she didn't have any grocery bag. She just left her baby and then screamed helplessly when there was a mysterious fire. Shout out to her. Shout out to the people who watched a giant boulder of a balcony hurtle towards their face and stood there until somebody just yanked them out at the last minute. Shout out to their spines as well. And to the tailors who are clearly made by the same people who sewed John Wick suits, because those suckers didn't rip when he yanked their full body weight at the last minute. They didn't yank. Shout out to that balcony that was only 20 feet tall, because Peter looked directly into Harry's eyes and Harry looked directly into Peter's eyes, and they could read each other's expressions without any powers. Shout out to that only 20-foot tall balcony. But then when you looked at it from another shot, it was clearly, what, hundreds of feet up in the air? How tall was that building? How short was it? I had so many questions. Now, E-Boogie said, oh, and last but not least, and I give her credit for this one. It's not really a dig, but it's just something that I noticed. This movie is very much of its time, and arguably I would say that between 1 and 2, superhero movies, if we're going to call it that genre, changed so much that the feel of Spider-Man 2 is slightly different than the feel of Spider-Man 1. This movie felt like it was called New York City. Can we put that up there, please? We always love to read these comments. Shout out to James going in on single moms trying to make it. Yes, shout out to single moms who leave their infant babies home alone, because those are the ones who deserve our respect. Shout out to Virgin Mary. Oh, I'm sorry, E-Boogie. Did you have more to say during my time? Sponsored by Rolex. All right. So this movie feels like it was called New York City, but really it was filmed in Tim Burton's Gotham City, and they just turned on the light. When I look at this movie sometimes, it doesn't feel like New York to me. And I would say this, none of the Raimi films feel like New York to me. They don't have that New York feel. I know they filmed it, in the proper neighborhood that it's supposed to be in the new MCU Spider-Man, but that one doesn't feel like, I would say, in a way, even though it feels more touristy, the Andrew Garfield movies feel more like it's actually in New York City rather than the Raimi films. The Raimi film, they look too surreal, just like Burton's Gotham City looked like a painting city. It didn't feel like a real lived-in city, as opposed to Nolan's Gotham City. Even though it didn't look like, it's not New York, it looked like a proper city, lived-in city. I hope you understand what I mean by that, but it very much felt like the same feel of I was watching the Tim Burton movie. And I say that to say this, because it had a Christopher Reeve Superman 1978. It had that Burton 1989 Batman feel, even though this movie came out in 2002, right? But if you look at Spider-Man 2, and we'll see it next week, as Chris just said, that film feels slightly different. It's slightly more mature or more to the modern era, to E-Boogie's point. And I just wanted to bring that up there. But again, shout out to that mother who left her baby in that house for no reason and brought back not formula or bottle or diaper, nothing. But shout out to her for leaving her baby home alone. Now, to the scenes that I love. Can we start in the beginning? That comic book opening with Danny Elfman, who again nailed it. Of course, we didn't have this moment because we hadn't seen these before, but I remember one of the things I look forward to is the opening crawl for Spider-Man 2, because I love the opening crawl of Spider-Man 1 so much, and the music is slightly changed. The tempo is slightly different, but letting us know what we can expect in the movie as if I'm flipping through a comic book. Forget the MCU doing it. Forget them doing it in the later iterations of some of these films that even though it wasn't part of the MCU, they still did it to make it part of Marvel continuity. No. Give credit where it's due. Loved it and loved the music. We talked about Peter Parker. I'm going to say it now. You all know how I feel about Tony Stark Jr. I do not like him. I would not like him here or there. I do not like him in a house or with a mouse. I do not like that kid. I don't like him always calling Tony Stark. But anyway, Tobey Maguire, who, shout out to him and the blood that he drinks, because the man doesn't age. But in this movie, he was clearly 45 years old, playing a high school kid. But
come on, bro. You have to exaggerate.
Wait a minute, Rolex. Now listen. But even at 40 years old, and all those old ass high school looking kids, shout out to them. All of them, they look like they were teachers when they weren't students. But anyway,
21 Jump Street.
just saying, right? Shout out to them. But he played Peter Parker to a T. Even when he had his powers, right? She's always watching.
Don't do that.
Madam Web.
Don't do that because
Like
he always says
Madam
that
Web,
all the
she's always
time.
watching. Thank you, Felicia Hardy in the wings. Thank you, Felicia Hardy. But that's a compliment. But he played it to a T. He was pitiful. Even when he had his powers, he was still awkward. Only when he was playing the part of Spider-Man, not donning the thing, but pretending like he was a different person, did he have some confidence. Or when he was not in his mind, when he got lost in thought. And you see this several times throughout the movies, most notably when he's talking to Mary Jane, and he's not saying it directly to her, even though he's talking directly to her. He's saying what he told Harry about, what Spider-Man told him to tell MJ, right? So again, he's not in his own mind, so he's not as nervous. And it's only when she brings him back to that he realizes, like, oh wait, it's me, and I'm just the shy, awkward kid. I love that. I don't think any of the other actors who have played Peter Parker have nailed that. I don't know if it's because of the script, and I joke around about the new one. I have nothing against the person. I don't know him personally, right? But I don't know if it's the writing or whatever, and I'm going to give credit to the writing, but I'm going to give credit to the acting because Tobey Maguire nails it. He nails it. Peter Parker is not the every guy. Peter Parker is the underdog. And that has to be understood. And in this movie especially, he plays it to a T. There's so many beats in Spider-Man 2, which is my favorite of the trilogy, spoiler alert, but that you see different aspects of it. But in this one, it's so beautifully shown. And I love that it was consistent throughout this movie. Another thing that I mentioned about Tony Stark, as I joked about earlier, in Iron Man 1, you only see his intelligence displayed one time. Every other time in the first movie, every other time it's always said. In this movie, you actually see Peter working things out. He makes mistakes, yes. Why? Because he's human. But he learns from his mistakes. He puts pieces together. Even when he's in some emotional thing, when he's talking to Aunt May, and then she says to him, and they're having that fun time. He says, "I'm glad that you finally told MJ how you felt," and they had that moment. And then she says, "Well, everybody knows." Immediately, he was like, "They got you because they know who it is. I don't know who it is yet, but clearly she's in danger. I need to reach out." Right? You see him working out his powers and trying to figure out how they work. You see him actually, another thing I love, even though we don't see the scene itself, he actually made his own suit. I love that. It's small character beats that go a long way for me. I've said it before about the MCU films, some things I like and some things I don't like. And this one, I like that they show intelligent characters being intelligent. And we see this throughout. I'm not so much in the third one because I think it's a little character assassination. But in this one and in Spider-Man 2, I'm just going to say that. Okay. MJ. I like that she's not some drop dead gorgeous person. That's my opinion. It's nothing against the actress, right? But she looks like a pretty girl in high school, right? She doesn't look like some bombshell, that will be in Victoria's Secret runway or whatever like that. She's supposed to be a high school kid. So she looks high school pretty. And that's accurate to the character that she's playing. And I like that. I like the fact that they grew up next door and she's aware of him and everything like that, but she's never given him a second thought. He's just the kid that lives next door. Whereas he, from his point of view, has always loved her, right? And their interactions and their play together is great. That's how it is, especially in the second one, as their relationship develops. Again, not so much on the third one. E-Boogie called it the fact that we see Uncle Ben in this movie, right? Which I think is a cardinal mistake that they made in the new iteration of the MCU where they made Tony Stark Uncle Ben. You can't do that. There's only a slight, not even direct mention, right? It's just a slight reference to Uncle Ben. But Uncle Ben is the reason why he becomes Spider-Man. And he devotes himself to fighting crime. And in this one, even though Cliff Robinson only has like a few scenes, not that I'm going to describe that he still showed, but you see the heart that character had, how he played that character. The last time they were together, when they had that fight, you see what I'm saying? And you could understand why Peter is so grieved at the way he talked to this guy, because you could see and imagine their whole history as he had raised them since they were 5 years old, as Aunt May says, right? And how it resonates with them. And he says, I'm never going to let this happen again. I like that. I like the fact that even when he caught the guy who, even though it's retconned later, that shot Uncle Ben, and he doesn't push him out the window, he has no remorse or sorrow that the guy dies. He actually enjoys that. I like that because it's true to life and it's true to the emotion of that moment, and that's what a real person would do. I like that they didn't soften that up. Really, really good. Can I just do exclamation point to the end of the show? J. Jonah Jameson. Every scene he's in, do you not love him? There's a reason why he's in the MCU. He killed it. He killed it. He was great. It was like I was in the 1930s, how I assume it would be. It reminded me of the Daily Planet in the original Christopher Reeves, especially in the 78 Superman film, when you see the back and forth and you see how Lois and Perry White talk to each other and how she talks to, as she calls them, Smallville, especially in the Superman 2. It was that feel of it. And they nailed it. Raimi nailed it. Beautifully done. More on the relationship with the people who work in that office in the second one, but I'll get to that later. The infight. Not when Mary Jane has arms made of adamantium and she falls from I don't know what height and grabs onto the bar and doesn't rip her arms out of her socket. Yes. No, it's Rolex, okay? It's Rolex because we have the highest quality. Nothing against Timex. We will also take your money as well. But the infight, not when the children are whipped around and physics no longer exists in this world. No, I'm talking about when Peter Parker took the beating of a lifetime. He took a beating like he was Wolverine. Nobody short of Wolverine has ever taken a beating in a superhero movie. Not even Batman. Okay? Ra's al Ghul did not beat Batman the way Peter Parker got whooped at the end of this movie. Why do I keep bringing that up? Because he earned his dues. Nobody in the airport fight in Civil War, or not in Civil War, got beat up like Peter Parker in this movie. He barely made it out. Why is that important? Because it shows just how effective the villain is, and it shows that he gave everything to walk out of there barely alive. When that pumpkin grenade goes off, and I remember seeing that the first time in the theater, as Chris talked about when he saw it on his birthday, and there was a slow-mo, and you see the ripple of his face, and it just throws him back. When he shoots the web as a last-minute thing just to catch his breath, and he just rips it apart. He gets up to try and hit him, and Goblin just kicks him straight in the chest like Bruce Lee. I forget the movie when he's fighting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And he kicks him in the chest like that. It was a Tower of Death, yeah. And he kicks him in the chest. It was just great. And that last minute when we saw it was teased in the beginning when we see the spider sense. I've never seen spider sense done better. That's my opinion, right? And he jumps out of the way of the glider at the last minute. I love the relationship between Norman Osborn and Peter Parker, the fact that he respected him. And if not for that formula turning him crazy, you could see him, as he says, you're his friend, you're like family then. He genuinely respected him and the way he carried himself. And that was realistic because you can tell that Norman Osborn built himself up from nothing. He was probably poor as well growing up. I like the fact that Harry was jealous of that, because that's realistic too. They had so many different realistic beats in this movie. I loved it. Was it campy, as E-Boogie says? Yes, it was of its time. That's how most comic book movies were made. The only exceptions where it wasn't like that is Blade, because even X-Men, the first X-Men, had that feel of camp. Blade is the only variation of that in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? But this movie, as Chris says, is nigh on the money. right? And you hate to say something's perfect because, you know, it's made by people, but it is like on the cusp of the bullseye. And I would have to agree also, because Spider-Man 2 is my favorite, that I will put that up. I don't care if it's of the time or whatever. I put that with 78 Superman. I put that up with The Dark Knight. I put that up with, as I said, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, even though I think it's better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. There are very few movies, in my opinion, that beat Spider-Man 2. More on that later. I give this movie a thumbs up. That somebody forgot to not put up there. I don't know.
I feel like I just got to a fight with the Green Goblin just now. I remember a little bit why we changed the format, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back, find out what we're going to discuss on Thursday, find out what we'll discuss on Tuesday, and then we're going to do a little recasting for anybody who possibly had recast. Stay with us. You're watching Unpopular Reviews.
Before there was a Secret Service, there was
West. Jim West.
Are you a dangerous spy or just a handsome cowboy who likes to poke around?
I believe I'm that second one.
A free Thursday giving up for a quality movie of Will Smith's, right? That's what you thought might have happened, but no, that's not what happened. Find out what we're reviewing next Tuesday.
I believe there's a hero in all of us. Gives us strength, makes us noble. Even though sometimes we have to give up the thing we want the most.
No matter how hard I try, I want Spider-Man dead. It's the ones I love who will always be the ones who pay.
I can't keep thinking about you. I'm getting married.
I want a life of my own. I'm Spider-Man. No more.
Next Tuesday, we're going into some people's favorite Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man 2. But today, we're talking about other people's favorite Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man, the first one from 2002. I'm the executive consultant. Up there is E. Boogie, picking her nose, Jameson, and as well as Vic. We are here to talk about some recasting. I will go first because I don't have recasted. Boom, that was done. That's easy. Slide it up to E. Boogie. E. Boogie, ladies first. What do you have?
Oh, I already stated that because in the pre-production meeting, y'all said that we're doing it all at once. Now here we go, and you want to do recast it. So this is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to recast Mary Jane Watson as Faith Evans, and because she's my favorite redhead.
Okay.
And then I'm going to leave Tobey Maguire because Tobey Maguire and Faith Evans, why not? And I'm going to recast James Franco as Kofi Cerebo because this movie desperately needed some flavor. And
Double O.
Kofi Cerebo.
Is that the new 007?
No.
Oh, why did he say 00?
You said Chris? Wow. He's from Queen Sugar.
I said of love. She said flavor. All right, some quality recasting there from you, E Boogie. Quality recast, quality yellow shirt. Vic, what you got?
Okay. All right. You know that lady that left the baby inside the building?
The one James has been shaming? Yes.
The mother of the year. Be careful, Vic. That's the mother of the year.
Yeah. What this is telling me is we're not ready with recasting.
Can you put your recasted up again? Because actually that was somebody else in this movie.
Oh God.
You remember when they were at the World Unity Fest and somebody goes, even though there's instructions, she's all happy. She's like, look, it's Spider-Man. Randomly, that's who that was. That was played by the same actress.
Yes, it was.
The same actress actually also that was in the hallway when he jumped and said, how did he do that?
Yes. Oh, and the guy that said you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Here we go. There you go. That's three. That's three. You happy? You happy?
Well, I actually have quite a few. This is weird. This is not again. I do this based on who they look like to me.
Oh my God! Here we go.
I do this based on who they look like to me. And this is not, again, a judgment on the movie itself. But first, I'd like to show a video. I'll just play the video. Now, when I first saw that, I said, "Who's on their knees in the elevator?" But I didn't know what video to pick, so I just left it at that. But shout out to them for earning that money, because this times is hard. And what did the man say? The rent's too damn high.
It was probably that mom.
Was that why she abandoned her baby?
To make it $40.
How much is Infamous? How much is Infamous? I don't know.
$40.
I don't know. Listen. Well, Kenny, I don't know why they're laughing. This is supposed to be serious. Come on. But anyway, did you not see the recast that I did? My next. Fine, I'll show it. I guess they weren't watching. Were y'all watching just my recast? What was this one? All right. Well, everybody's seen it. But listen, Chrissy, are you watching at home? Listen. So this is my recasted. I saw them when they went into the museum. I don't know what museum that was supposed to be. I forget what they said. But the lady, the spider lady, the arachnid specialist, whatever the ologist, whatever they call that, right? Arachnid specialist. Here she is right here. And the first thing I thought when I saw her was, oh, it's Mantis. And that's how I recast her as. Now, they look alike. Now, before you write into the show and Chrissy has to read it, don't take it any farther. That's just the first thought that came to my mind. And I'm honest on this show. Now, I don't know why they're laughing. Anyway, at the end of this movie, there's a fight when physics goes out the window and they're in Bizarro Land, right? And Mary Jane, she falls from like 50 feet and just grabs onto the edge of that Roosevelt trolley that Vic was on. And her arms don't rip out their socket. She's just there. No bra. Nothing pops out. Not even the socket. She's just hanging on. Totally fine. Doesn't break a nail, nothing. But anyway, I'm not talking about MJ, but I'm talking about the Tugboat Captain. And here he is right here. You see the guy operating the light in the back? But there he is. I'm talking about the dude up front. And when I saw him, I said, oh, I know this man. Here he is right here. He's looking at the other guy who's operating the light, throwing chum in the water. He's throwing chum in the water. I said chum in the water. And here's another picture of him. And this is when he's telling the story about how he first met that great white, that big fish. Because I said, oh, if this is not the dude from Jaws, because he looks smack like him. And that was my first thought. Now, somebody in the comments said, oh, it's Felicia Hardy. She goes, was his tip sticky? I don't know.
Wow. I never hear that.
But I will say this. He came into that apartment smiling. He was He was kissing everybody. He was in a good mood. And he left quickly out of that apartment to go back into the elevator. His son tried to follow him. And he says, look, I got to go. Mysteriously. Why? I don't know. But I can't answer that question. Maybe in the director's cut.
Ladies and gentlemen, after hearing E and Vix and James's their recast, I decided I have to bring some dignity to this segment. Gotta have you in on a good note. So I decided to recast a scene, right? It's this scene right here, right? So you might ask, what are you recasting? And I'm saying, if you saw this movie, you would notice something wrong with this scene right here. And that is that Spider-Man is looking very wooden. And I don't think it's because he's attracted to E-Boogie, right? I just think that he just wasn't necessarily Tobey Maguire or anybody with some blood. So I was like, hey, what does that scene remind me of?
I know what you're going to
do. And I said, got it. It's more recent, but here you go. From X-Men Apocalypse. Mystique in the background, also looking very wooden. Like maybe them actors weren't getting paid enough to be in that scene. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of Recast. So that's the end of this movie. We're going to end right over there at 50-minute mark. So for Vic, for James, for E, I'm his EC.
Chris, did you get Chrissy? Chrissy had to recast it.
Did she?
Yeah. Oh, I think she picked the same one as
James made the room. James made the room. He doesn't know how to put the thumbnail, so I'm going to add the thumbnail later. Thank you so much. See you still bossing this round, even from the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching us. We'll see you next time. We'll see you on Thursday for Wow Wow. I won't. But they'll see you Thursday for Wild Wild West. Thank you so much. Have a good night. UPRE.